TRUTHIRACY, House of Wisdom.
Yeah, I found someone who's a brilliant con man and a very intelligent individual. He's a disinformation artist. He goes under the name of Truthocracy, who takes totally unrelated entomology, linguistics, and mixes them together. He takes words that come from sources that are thousands of years apart, that are totally unrelated, from totally unrelated parts of the world, which have no association with each other. I just watched a video he was doing about liars, about the liar. And he was writing that its roots went back to the Celtics. Uh, and and then relates it to to Latin. Now, the Latin root words and the Celtic have nothing to do with each other. They were, they are thousands of miles apart.
Aloha, WolfDog777. I'm going to take my time to actually explain some of these, accusations and insinuations that you're making about me. And first, I want to say thank you for some of the good things you said about me, and then I want to clarify your misunderstandings.
Yeah, I found someone who's a brilliant con man and a very intelligent individual. He's a disinformation artist.
Okay, Wolf. First of all, I just want to say thank you for saying that I'm intelligent, which I think we are all intelligent humans on Earth. It just so happens that I actually apply myself and did a bunch of research, so that's how I became intelligent. But I'm not any more intelligent or less so than anyone else, including yourself. Now, you're entitled to your opinion, but I am no disinfo agent at all. That is 100% wrong. Now, you're entitled to your opinion, but all opinions are just that. They're just opinions, opinionated perceptions of something, and that's your perception. But you're absolutely wrong. Like I said, you're entitled to that opinion, but you're wrong. I am not a disinfo agent whatsoever. In fact, I'm an info agent, if anything.
It goes under the name of Truthocracy.
Okay, so I want to, respond to you, but first we have to clear up a few things here. First of all, I don't know where you got the word truthocracy. I mean, I understand that you wear glasses, and now that I'm just about 44 years old, I lately had been wearing glasses too, but the fact is there's no O in truthiracy or truthiracy. It's just like the word conspiracy or conspiracy. It's truthiracy, not truthocracy. So I have no idea where you got that, but that's just completely wrong, first of all.
Who takes totally unrelated entomology, linguistics, and mixes them together. He takes words that come from sources that are thousands of years uh, apart, that are totally unrelated, from totally unrelated parts of the world.
Okay, Wolf. Basically, you don't understand some very basic concepts and basic understanding of truth. And the truth is that yes, this world is gigantic on one hand, and then on the other hand, it's a very small world. So this is why we have the expression, the more things change, the more they stay the same. So your perception is that humans throughout the world are just completely different. And that does hold a grain of truth to it. But the real truth is that all humans across the world hold more in common than they do less in common. So I don't know how much research you've actually done on ancient cultures found throughout the world. But if you actually had, you would realize that they have much more in common than most realize. There's basic concepts that are the same, really because we're humans. So we perceive things universally alike. So whether you're talking about gods or languages or whatever, you're going to find a common bond. First of all, because we're humans, like I said, so therefore we create and we visualize and we understand things universally. I mean, I could spend hours and hours proving to you what I'm talking about, but basically, if you research, let's say, the Mayan culture or ancient Indian culture or ancient Hebrew culture, okay, you're going to find a very common bond. You're going to find basic concepts that are the same. You're going to find sun worship. You're going to find moon worship. You're going to find animal worship. You're going to find religious worship that is basically the same theology found throughout the world. The serpent, for example, in the Mayans, or the serpent worship in ancient Mesopotamia. Bull worship. Indians, you're going to, or Native Americans, buffaloes, bulls with horns. Go back to ancient Greece, go back to ancient Hebrews, Cana Phoenicia. You're going to find bull worship. You're going to find more in common than less in common. And the same holds true for ancient Egypt, for example. You're going to find sun worship, moon worship. You're going to find serpent worship, and also related to the sun, just like the serpent worship in the Mayans and related to the sun. Now, these are two total different parts of the world. You're going to find bull worship in ancient Egypt, et cetera, et cetera. So if you actually did a little research, you might just start to understand what I am saying. If you understand and really research religions throughout the world, they are they are so much more alike than not alike. So this is why, for example, that the ancient Celtics, the ancient Sumerians, okay, the ancient whoever you want to be talking about, the Greeks or whatever, you're going to find the same common concepts, especially for God, the god of lightning and in the air. The ancient Sumerians, An, Enlil, okay? Um, the ancient Celtics, you're going to find that their god, Thor, is the same as Zeus for the Greeks. If you understand that Jesus is the exact same thing again, you're talking about the same theology, because what religion and what the concept of God comes from is nature. So therefore, these anthropomorphic figures are a concept made from nature. And that's why you find a common bond throughout the world. And you'll notice that, of course, humans, idolize and worship our children, because that's one of the most precious things that God gave us to create. Okay, so we have religions that reflect the same human perceptions and concepts. This is why almost all religions of the world always worship the sun, whether it be Tammuz, Horus in ancient Egypt. You're talking about Zeus, who's the son of Saturn. You're talking about Thor, who's the son of Odin. You're talking about Jesus, who's the son of God. And just like Baal worship, because Baal is the son of El, the bull. And when you do your research on ancient cultures of the world, you'll find, like I said before, that they worship the sun, the moon, throughout the world. The Mayans, the sun and moon temples. The Egyptians, the same thing. Ancient Sumeria, the exact same thing. You'll find, like I said, more in common than less in common. So sure, there's different names, but they have the same meaning. Just like the ancient Celtics, the ancient Sumerians. They both have a concept of heaven and hell, basically. So things are a little different, but overall, basically the same. I mean, why do you think you find cultures all throughout the world that practice ancient sacrifice? either one of two things. Either everybody in our ancient history developed these practices, these rituals independently, or it was spread throughout the world in the ancient world, and thus it became a practice and evolved around the world. Um, since there's so much in common, I kind of believe that to be true. Perhaps I don't know, the original elite, the original ruling class, if you will, they might have spread their theology throughout the world. That's why we have ancient, sacrifice comes again, like I said before, from nature. The annual season, harvesting, the sower, the reaper. That's why all the religions have what's known as the slain God. And that's why to this very day, we still have the story about the slain God. Ask anybody about Jesus, and the first thing they're going to tell you is, oh, he died for our sins. He died. In other words, he was killed, he was sacrificed so that we can have a better life, blah, blah, blah. Do your research. Spend 10 minutes a day. Do something. Research. You'll find that the ancient corn spirit, the ancient harvest spirit, okay, this goes way back in history all throughout the world. Read the book from the 1800s, the Golden Bow. Um, you know, you'll find that they always slayed the god from Osiris. He was slayed and cut into pieces. The god Saturn, he was cut and sliced into pieces. I mean, same with Jesus. He's killed for the same thing. If you realize it has to do with the season, that's why it's in March. That's why it's the Passover. You're talking about the same exact theology. Look at Dionysus. He's killed and slayed. Baal was killed and slayed. I mean, I can't believe that people don't take the time to research a religion that they want to believe in. So all these ancient gods were slayed and they went to the underworld and then they were resurrected or born again, either themselves or through a child, what have you. That's why we have the story of Jesus who gets slayed or gets sacrificed and then goes to the underworld and then is resurrected again. Because that's what the season does. That's what the year does. It dies in the winter, which is evilness, the cold, evil winter of darkness, and then the sun is born again, and is resurrected, because that's what happens every year. And the ancients knew this concept. They saw the patterns, just like day and night. The moon comes and overtakes the evil, or the evil moon overtakes the good sun of the day and kills the sun. So the ancient Egyptians felt that the sun god went to the underworld and died, but yet came back again. So really he didn't die. He was just in the underworld and then came back again. He was resurrected and reborn, rebirthed, which is the whole story of Jesus. And the same with Baal. Okay, so if you just do your research, you'll find that I'm not a disinfo agent, I'm actually an info agent. So I'm not trying to disprove the Bible because I'm mean and evil, quite the contrary. I'm actually trying to show people that they just accept what is spoon-fed to them. They don't take the time to do their research and try to understand, first of all, why the religions exist, but they don't take the time to see that these religions have absolutely nothing to do with truth. The gods that are made up have nothing to do with the real God, because not one human on earth knows what the real God is all about. I mean, all you have to do is start taking a couple of ideas and concepts and thinking about them, and you'll realize how much bullshit it's all about. I mean, you think thousands of years ago, God spoke? What, he has laryngitis and can't speak anymore? I mean, I could go for freaking hours talking about things that would make you wake up and break the spell of El, but all you need to do is just start thinking on your own, and then you'll see the true light. So now I'm going to touch on the very issue and subject that your video was about, which was about language. So first I'm going to touch on the very foundation and root meaning of what language is, which is a system of communication. So you stated in your second video that I did not comprehend nor understand the original spoken language. You see, what you fail to grasp and comprehend is the very fundamental meaning and root understanding of what the very essence of language is. And that is communication. So you said that I don't understand the original spoken language of the ancient world. And what you fail to grasp is that language and communication existed well before man was even created. So for some reason, I think that you think that, let's say, ancient Hebrew or the ancient Cana-Phoenician language was the original spoken language. And I'm sorry to tell you, but that is just the documented, recorded original language. Or perhaps you think that maybe Egyptian language was the original language, which was ancient Kemet or Khmer. You see, language goes way back, way back in history, way before the ancient Egyptians. You see, it even goes back further than the ancient cavemen, who obviously communicated with one another and had a primitive form of language. Language and communication goes back, like I said, way before man was even created. Language and communication goes back to the most basic foundation of life forms that evolved on Earth. You see, you visualize language as something that is spoken. Language includes many aspects beyond the realm of vocal language and speaking and sounds. Language is a form of communication, like I said, and communication comes from the word common. You see, in order for life to evolve and exist and continue on, communication is based entirely on fertility. It is based on reproduction. And this reproductive factor involves many aspects of communication, or things that are in common, so that things can communicate and come together. You see, even the most primitive life forms on Earth, okay, single cell organisms, in order for them to live and create and continue living, they have to reproduce. So the most fundamental, basic foundation of communication is based upon sex and fertility. One must communicate with another in order to exist. So language and communication is actually based entirely upon fertility and sexual union. You see, you think language means vocal or sounds. The truth is, language just means communication. So the most primitive life forms communicated without words, without sounds. They communicated with symbols. They communicated with colors and gestures and movement. Okay? Much later on down the line was language um, evolved into a waveform of sound. You see, we communicate with language all the time without ever speaking a word, in our movements, in our emotional actions that we produce on our face, our attitude, the way we move, the way we gesture. Okay, one can read a person just by that alone. They don't need to hear any words. You can tell when a person's angry, you can tell when a person's sad or upset, etc. just by movements alone or colors. A person gets mad when they're red and angry. You get scared, you turn white as a ghost. Okay, that's why in nature you have color symbology. And these symbols reflect language. They reflect a form of communication to let others know and understand what is being portrayed. So you see, all living creatures that crawl or fly or walk or run and swim upon Earth all use language communication. They use symbolic representation through colors and movements to communicate. Fish, for example, really most of them don't make sounds. Okay, they use coloration, they use movement to communicate, just like most primitive animals do. Okay, you'll see like butterflies, insects, animals. All you have to do is do a little research, and you'll see what I'm saying. So you see, we really have the same form of communication as, let's say, a ladybug does. You have more in common with language communication with insects and animals than you don't have. So basically what I'm saying is that every single living creature that exists upon Earth have a relative realm of language and communication. They are more closely related than they are not related. So you see, this is why language, now I'm talking modern language in the last 5 to 10,000 years, let's say, is more closely related and universal than it being different and separate from one another. So yes, while most may perceive them to be completely different, the real truth is that they are more alike than unalike. So you see, all of the languages of the world have more in common and are more universal versus separate than most realize. They are more alike than unalike. So you see, this is why the modern day English language came from its ancestor of Anglish. And the Anglish is a pagan Germanic language which evolved and came from and includes almost all other languages from the ancient world, including Roman Latin, which includes ancient Greek, which includes ancient Canaan, Phoenician, and Hebrew. And this is exactly why the English language, or the Anglish language, as well as Latin and Greek, are based entirely upon the ancient Cana Phoenician Hebrew language, or the Paleo-Hebrew. You see, this is exactly why all of those that I just mentioned all have what's known as alphabets. And the alphabets are the foundation and the form of communication used in all of these modern day languages, which the alphabet is based entirely upon the ancient Cana-Phoenician alphabet, or the Aleph Bet. So that's why when you look at the English alphabet and the Latin alphabet and the Greek alphabet, you'll notice that, of course, they all start with the letter A, or the Aleph, and the next letter is the Bet, or the B. You see, this is why almost all of the languages and the alphabets are more alike than unalike. They are based entirely upon the ancient Cana-Phoenician language and alphabet. So you see, this is why our modern day English language has what's known as phonetics from the ancient Phoenicians. I mean, why do you think we have what's called a phone? Because it comes from the Phoenicians. It's a form of communication. So you see, our language or our alphabet is based entirely on the ancient Cana-Phoenicians. And you see, the ancient Cana-Phoenicians worshipped the bull god. Thus, the very reason and foundation of the alphabet is based entirely upon the ancient bull, which is the Aleph. And that's exactly why the ancient Paleo-Hebrew is the pictographic representation or symbol of the bull. So perhaps now you will understand why our language has what's known as syllables. And the earliest recorded syllable comes from the ancient place where they worshipped the bull or the same bull. And that is from ancient ancient Sumeria, ancient Mesopotamia. So you see, this is why the Torah and the Bible and the ancient Hebrew language and the alphabet is directly related to the religion or the Kabbalah, if you will. You see, they are universal. They basically both tell the same story. Once you do your research, you'll understand that. You see, most people think that you can't, cross over languages because they're completely different from one another, like you're accusing me of doing. But what you fail to recognize and understand is that once you see the code that is used, there is so much more in common and so much more that is unseen by the average person. Okay, all you have to do is begin to grasp what I'm saying, and you will start to see the unseen. I mean, there are literally thousands of examples, but let's just kind of boil it down to a couple so that you can start to grasp what I'm saying. Words like the, which means el, like el toro, which means the bull. What you don't see is the word the is the word theos. Theos means God. The means el, the means God, and el means God. You see, there's more of a relationship there than you recognize. I mean, I can go all day and night. Words like Eve, which is the goddess. Okay, she is the goddess of birth and all creation from darkness and the evening, which is why she's evil. Okay, and evil is the devil because the devil is the deceiver of December, the one that is in decline because the night is in decline or the sun has descended to the underworld of darkness and evilness. Thus, the devil or the evil is the evil goddess, the one that is the image of the negative aspect. Well, of course, like a woman is negative. Her vagina is inward, while the male is positive or outward. So anyway, the eve is the dark aspect of the evening, which is why we have the word evolve, or we came from the goddess Eve, because we evolved, which of course is from darkness. And of course the Bible tells the same story, that everything was non-existent and dark, and then came the light, which is what our life is all about. We're inside of the cave of the goddess, the woman, in the darkness, and then we come out through her canal, and then we see the light and come into lightness. Just as our day starts at night, the darkness, and it goes into the daylight. So this is why the Hebrew word for the devil or Satan is shad, which is why God, the bull god, is Shaddai, and the devil in hell is shad, like a shadow, the darkness. It's talking about the deceiver, the deceptive time of the year when evilness takes over the goodness. What it's really talking about is just the evil winter or the darkness overtakes the sunlight, which is what nature does.